Hi, I'm Brandon Poe, founder of Poe Group Advisors and creator of the Accounting Practice Academy. You are listening to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast, where we talk about stuff in the accounting world. If you're looking to buy or sell a practice, we are the premier accounting practice intermediary firm in the industry. Check us out at pogroupadvisors.com. If you're a firm owner looking to build a more profitable practice while actually reducing owner hours, sign up for our practice management workshop, which only runs a few times per year. Learn more at accountingpracticeacademy.com. Welcome to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast. I'm very excited to have a special guest today, Barabra Agerton. And we helped Barbara sell her firm in 2021. A little bit about her. She's originally from Louisville, Kentucky. She moved to Texas as soon as she could. She has an accounting degree from the University of Texas at Arlington and a master's degree in accountancy from the University of West Florida. She started her tax planning and preparation firm in 2005, and then successfully transitioned to the cloud. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today, is that transition in 2013. So when the pandemic hit, she was more than ready. In 2021, she successfully marketed and sold her practice. And now she has some free time and looking forward to some fun. And what's really cool, I love this part. You bought a plane last year and you're learning to fly. Barbara lives in Corpus Christi, Texas with her husband of 30 years. And sounds like y'all are flying all over the place.
We're having some fun.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it's funny. Most people don't know my background picture is a plane until they really kind of look at it. But
yeah, I think that's what drew me to you was your book, The Accountant's Flight Plan.
Yeah, well, good. Well, we weren't trying to get pilots in the mix, but we'll take it. So, well, thank you for being on today. It's nice to have you.
It's great to be here.
So let's just jump right in. Want to start? Tell me what your firm was like, because it was based in California. Tell me what your firm was like prior to you transitioning in 2013. Like, what was it? Was it just a basic traditional practice? Just tell us a little bit about the firm.
It was just a little bitty office. The city that we lived in was small, 25,000 people, little tiny town out in the middle of California. My husband is a Navy veteran. He's retired now, but back then he was active duty. And so when I started the practice, I knew that it was going to have to eventually be in the cloud, because I didn't want to have to leave it every time we moved for the Navy. So it was always my intent to move it to the cloud. But yeah, starting out, it was just a little firm in a little town on, the cute little downtown Main Street. It was on the second story.
Just a pretty normal, traditional little firm in a small town. Yeah. And then, so what happened in 2013? What was okay, it's time to make this change?
What was the trigger?
What was the trigger?
Yeah, well, I had two key employees that did most of the work in the firm, and then one admin and me. And my two key employees at the same time, their husbands both got jobs in different cities. One of them was in a different state. And I was like, oh man, and it's a little small town, so there was no other talent in the town that I could hire. There was no way anybody was going to move there. And so I thought, okay, it's time. We're going to do it.
So you'd had it in the back of your mind, and this was like, okay, now it's no longer back there. It's got to come up front.
That's right. So we took the plunge, and we basically, everybody just took their desktops and their desk and moved it with them. And probably the second or third year we were in practice, we had gone paperless. That was like the big thing, go paperless. So we had already done that. So we already had everything kind of set up in-house on our server, and we invested in a cloud-based server. So we just moved everything up to the cloud. And We had a lot of learning curve, a lot of school of hard knocks, trying to figure it out. But the one thing we did have was time. It wasn't like, okay, it's COVID, we got to go to the cloud. We were already there. So we had that benefit. We had time to adjust.
Yeah. So I guess, so your game plan was basically, hey, let's just have a way for people to work remotely. That was your biggest challenge. So you were still in town, you still had your admin person, right?
Mhm.
So you could still meet with clients.
Mhm.
And now were your key people, did they have a lot of client interaction as well at that time?
Yeah, they did, because they did most of the day-to-day work. And then, as the CPA, I would come in and actually meet with the clients. So that part was still, in-house. But then in 2015, my husband got a job in a different city. We moved back to Texas. So now I'm remote. And, everybody else was telling me, okay, this is what's happening, but I didn't quite get it until I went remote. And then I'm like, oh, now I see what you're talking about. Because if
Yeah.
the biggest thing, and I'll say this, the biggest issue, I guess, was communicating. Because, when you're all in the same office and it's a little small, quaint little office, you hear everything that's going on. A client stops by, they say, here's this, blah, blah, blah is going on. Everybody else in the office hears it. So you know what's going on, right? But when you're remote, it's different.
Yeah.
It's just different.
So what did you do to kind of fill that gap for communication with your team?
Well, we started out using Skype, and we would have a team meeting. So every Monday we'd have a team meeting. We'd just talk about, okay, here's what's going on. Here's what we're going to work on this week. Here's what we know. And then throughout the week on a daily basis, it was the phone, it was email, it was text, it was one-on-one Skype so we could share our screens. And then we eventually moved to Microsoft Teams we were using. But I don't, now there's Zoom. So, there's so many ways you can communicate now.
Right. So how long did it take the team to adjust to that sort of management? You had to adjust as a manager, and they had to adjust. So how long do you felt like it took to kind of get to where you felt like you knew what was going on? And
it was pretty quick, really. It was quick. The clients were a little worried that, when my team members left, right? And, but we bought a voice over IP phone. So, the phone would ring and one of my coworkers would pick it up from wherever they were. And they're like, oh, hey, Kim, are you back in town? And I didn't realize that they could do that. So tools, you have to use tools.
well, you did it before it was like very common. So it was probably really strange for clients. Like this model that you were developing was foreign to probably most of the people that you worked with. So I really want to talk to you a little bit more about what was that client communication, like specifically, how did you assure them like, hey, we can do this and it's not going to be, it's going to work, like it's going to be fine. How did you convince them of that?
Well, one of the things, I guess, I don't like big announcements. However, I do feel like you have to communicate with your clients. So instead of sending out a big announcement, we kind of did it on a one-on-one basis with our clients. We wanted them to feel still connected with us, even though we were remote. So, we did everything that we could to make the client experience the same as it was. We didn't want them to feel like they were being left out of the loop somehow.
So how did you do that? How did you make them feel?
Well, for one thing, their communication with my two team members didn't change. They could call on the phone, they could still talk to them, they could still email them. It was the same. We started texting because now everybody texts. They like to text. So none of that changed, and then as far as me communicating with them, I still had the office there. So I guess you could say we were kind of a blended firm, right? We still had the physical office. And I had my admin, she was great. She would set up the Skype meetings or the team meetings, and the client would still come into my same old office that they always came into, sit at the table where they always sat. And instead of me sitting there physically, I'd be on the screen on my computer.
Okay, so that's an interesting approach, because as we've switched to Zoom with our clients more and more over the last couple of years, especially with our older clients, like they're not comfortable with the technology, but if they just come into your office and you're doing the tech for them, that's, I bet they thought it was kind of interesting that they could communicate and have Skype, especially in 2013.
Yeah, no, they were fine with it. And the ones that were more tech savvy, they just did it from home. They were great. They were fine. They didn't care. But the ones that were not tech savvy, they wanted to come in and see a real person.
Yeah.
So at least they had my admin, she was there. She was like my hands. She would flip the pages for her. She would point things out for them, put things in envelopes. So.
Oh, interesting. What that's a great approach. Nice way to kind of slowly, you were able to slowly do it, because from 2013 to 2015, you were there, and then you left in 15. So now what about software? So did you have people that went to like QuickBooks Online? Did you switch people over to an online platform?
We switched everybody over to QuickBooks Online. We used mostly Intuit products, but we switched everybody over to Intuit Online. Probably, I'm trying to think when we did that. It was probably 13 when we did that. Yeah, I can't remember. But yeah, we switched everybody over to Intuit Online, and we had always used an Intuit tax program too, and it was Windows based, but it was on our server, so it was fine. We could use it all.
So did you have any resistance from clients from going from desktop to online?
Yeah.
and how did you handle that? How was that addressed?
We did it slowly. The clients that did their own stuff, like their own bookkeeping, but we just came in and did like bank recs or whatever at the end of the month. Those people we waited, but the ones where we did all the work, where we did everything, we moved those immediately because the client didn't care. They didn't see it. So that's kind of how we tested it to make sure it was going to work. And then we informed our desktop clients that we were no longer going to support desktop and that we were moving to the cloud with their accounting stuff, and we would be there to help show them how to do it, and we would support them.
Right.
So we basically had to tell them no, we weren't going to support the desktop anymore.
So you had to say, hey, this is the rules of engagement. So did they like the product once they got moved over?
Once they figured it out, there was that little bit of a learning curve there, but
so did you lose any clients? Did you lose too many?
I don't think I lost any from going to QuickBooks Online. No. Mm-mm.
What about the remote work arrangement? Did you lose any when you
Did I lose clients because of that? No. I think there's a natural flow to the firms. You're going to lose some anyway,
Hmm.
and then you gain some. So it's always kind of lose a little, but you gain a little. So as long as you gain more than you lose, you're in better shape.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. So I think that's the thing that people are most nervous about is like moving those people from desktop to online. And you kind of just have to do it one client at a time, don't you? It's not just this mass thing. It sort of has to happen gradually, but it
Yeah,
has to happen.
and you have to talk to the client and let them um, feel like they're part of that decision.
Now, were the conversions pretty good back then? Like going from desktop to online, was it a pretty easy technical
Um,
conversion?
at that time, we were doing payroll through Intuit, and payroll was difficult to convert. So that was kind of a hands-on thing where we had to do a lot of data entry. So we tried to do that at the beginning of the year, so there wasn't so much payroll that we had to input again. Yeah,
Yeah.
but most of the stuff came over.
Yeah, pretty well. It sounds, I mean, you make it sound pretty straightforward. And I think, from a high level, it's fairly simple conceptually, right? What were the pain points though? What were the things that were, oh, if we could do it again, we might think differently kind of thing?
Oh, well, moving to a cloud-based server was very expensive at the time. And you had to sign like a 3-year contract. So it was like, oh my God, it was like signing a lease. You know how expensive rent is, and you have to sign a long-term lease and blah, blah, blah. So it was the same with the server. So that was a pain point for me as the owner of the company. But if I had to do it again, I would do it. I felt like it was more secure because I'm not a computer techie security person, and I felt like I didn't know enough on my own to help protect my clients. So
Yeah, that's a good point. Security being
mhm,
a big issue.
yeah.
Now, did you prioritize the communication with your clients and the conversion? Did you say, I mean, you already mentioned you prioritize like the people that you were doing the bookkeeping for. Any other, like, did you make the switch to like the larger clients, or did you start with the smaller clients and kind of work out the bugs? How did you, any
Oh,
prioritization that you did?
definitely started with the easier clients just so we could work out the bugs, and I put my own books on there. Anytime I changed something, I was the guinea pig. I would put my own stuff out there first, just so I could test it and make sure that it was going to work for the client. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I
I
was the
think
guinea pig.
I think it's smart to start with sort of the simpler ones. That way you can learn the system. Did you have any internal resistance to switch into QBO? Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh
your
yeah.
team?
My team members are very resistant to change. So all of this, going to the cloud, changing the software, all of that was very difficult, very difficult. Maybe difficult is not the word, but they resisted the change. But they loved their job and they wanted to keep their job, so they were willing to, take it on. So
Well, it was pretty bold of you to do what you did. I guess the physical distance, the team being forced to go remote kind of forced this on you. Do you think you would have done it had that not happened? I mean, eventually you might have, but
I don't know. You always have in your mind that you want to do certain things, but until you're forced to do it, you probably won't because it's working the way it is. So why would you change it? So
yeah, I think that's where a lot of people are with thinking about that conversion. It's like, well, it's working.
mhm.
Um, but I feel like the cloud, I guess the evolution of what you can do with cloud software is probably gonna, I don't know, do you think cloud firms have a big advantage over traditional firms with technology? Just the automation aspect of it. Do you feel like it's a big advantage?
I don't know. I guess most firms that are, brick and mortar, that they're pretty tech savvy. I guess the biggest thing that I see going forward, everybody kind of went remote for COVID, and now kind of everybody is coming back out and getting back in the workplace and going back to the offices. And I still think that a blended system is best.
Mm-hmm.
I still feel that way. I don't know that you could ever go 100% cloud-based and really be providing the best service to your client. There's just too many of them that are not tech savvy, and they're not ever going to be tech savvy, and you want to be able to take care of them.
Right. Yeah, it's I can say from my own experience, I like working with my team in the office. Like, it's nice to have, especially for brainstorming sessions and anything creative at all. It's nice to be in the office with each other.
Yeah, we were talking about that the other day. It's just a shame how isolating it is to work from home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's great. Don't get me wrong. I love working from home. I'm here at home. The dog's barking outside and, all the noise, but I miss that camaraderie from being in the office space with the team. I miss it. So.
Yeah. I think our firm is kind of like a hybrid model where we come into the office. We do have some remote people and remote teams, but I think a lot of cloud firms do operate that way, where you still have an office. And so, well, advice. Let's just kind of get into the advice section of this.
Words of wisdom.
Words of wisdom. If you were gonna talk to somebody who was thinking of transforming their firm to the cloud, like, what are one or two bits of advice that you would give them?
I guess the biggest thing is don't be afraid to pick up the phone. When we're all comfy in our little home office and we're used to emailing or texting, you get into this big long email stream of back and forth questions and answers, and it's like, no, just pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, the client appreciates it when you pick up the phone, and it just makes things so much better.
Yeah. There's no replacement for just one-on-one conversation. So
no. And that's why I like these Zoom calls. And when I would meet with my clients, we would Zoom or Skype or whatever. We would have a video call. And I loved that because I could see their face and they could see my face. And I don't know, there's so much with body language and expressions that you just don't get over the phone even.
Right.
I think it's important.
Yeah, I agree. Zoom's getting better and better, so it's been nice. Well, so let's talk just a little bit about the sale.
Okay.
Do you feel like the sale had a big impact on, the cloud, the fact that you were cloud had a big impact on the sale? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
There is no way I could have sold that firm if we weren't cloud-based, because it was in a small little town. Nobody's coming to that town. It's a great town. I loved it, but it's just not, well, if you're trying to sell a remote location firm, it's just hard to find a buyer that's willing to go there. Right.
Yeah.
But in my case, I've been running it remotely since 15. So I proved it, it was a proved concept that I could actually run a firm that was 1,500 miles away from me and make it work. And so the buyer that you ended up finding for us was based out of San Diego. So, yeah, so she's remote, but she's close enough. She can get there. She can drive and get there. So that was good. But,
it's I mean, I remember we had quite a few people inquire. You had a good bit of interest. I think you were happy with the terms and price.
It was a really good fit. And you guys made the experience good. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It was the whole thing went really well. And I couldn't be happier.
Well, good. So tell me about where you are with your airplane pilot's license. How's that going?
Well, it's a slow road. I did the ground school and I learned a lot about flying, which is good because I was anxious about it. And, it's kind of made me nervous, but my husband's a pilot. So I have my own private pilot. It's wonderful.
That's great.
Yeah. And I've gone through ground school. I passed the test. I've got my little student pilot license and I've been taking lessons, and I can do everything except land the plane.
That's kind of an important part of it, right?
That was the whole point. I wanted to be able to land the plane, but when you're coming into land, it looks like you're going like this into the runway. It's like,
I have a friend who's a pilot, and he flies for FedEx, and he says, you can choose whether or not you want to take off, but you got to land. So, well, this has been good. One more thing, I'll let you go. Book recommendation. Ian said you really had a great book recommendation.
Yeah. We were talking about, when your team members went remote, how did you handle it when they came back at you with, questions, and all the problems kind of come back to me, right, as the owner of the firm. So I read this book one time. It was by Ken Blanchard, and it's called the 1 Minute Manager. You remember that book, the 1 Minute Manager book? Well, he wrote another one. It's called The 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey. So the monkey is the problem. So your team members come to your door and they bring you this problem. Here's my problem. And so Ken talked about hand it back to them and say, okay, here's where you go to find the answer. When you figure out what you want to do, come back and talk to me about it.
Perfect.
Yeah. And my team, they were so funny. They were like, Barbara, we really hated it when you started doing that, but we have learned so much because you did that. And they were happy that I did that. So,
we'll check that book out.
Yeah, it's a great little book. It's a little skinny book. It's a real easy read, but it was great. The first time I told it to one of my key employees, she goes, "Are you calling me a monkey?" And I said, "No, the problem is the monkey."
I just don't want the monkey on my back.
That's right. I don't want the monkey on my back. It's you take it.
Yeah, perfect. Well, Barbara, thank you so much.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure. And I'm off to a new adventure thanks to you. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast. If you like what you heard today, please follow us so that you can get updates when new episodes are released, and share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. You can also follow Poe Group Advisors on social media. Please visit our website for more information at pogroupadvisors.com.